Welcome to Genie Lab. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel. The thing we are going to look at is the introduction, and in the introduction we all know about color. Who hasn't heard about color before? Anyone? So when we talk about color, everything around us has a property that we call that the color of that object or substance. So when you see something, the color of that thing is that object or substance property. So when you take your book, you can see yellow. Why do you see yellow? It says color is the property of an object or substance that is perceived by the eyes and the brain when light reflects or in the presence of light. So you see that when there is no light, the only thing you can see is black. And we don't classify black as color. Black is the presence of no color. So what your eyes see when there is the presence of light is what we term as color. So when we talk about color theory is about, it is a set of rules that governs the use of colors. How we use colors in our design. If you're a painter, how you use color in your painting. That's what we termed as color theory. So everything about color, how color relates, the emotions we get when we see color, all those things is what we term as color theory. So the other thing we are going to look at is the color wheel. This color wheel was developed by Isaac Newton, and it comprises of different colors, all the colors we see around us. So the color wheel is a circular representation of colors and how they relate to each other. So on the color wheel, we can find three sets of colors. We have the primary color. Please, can you come and sit somewhere here? So on the color wheel, we can find three sets of colors, or we will call it three types of colors. We have the primary color, secondary color, and tertiary color. If we remember back in JHS and primary when we were doing creative art and BDT, we learned about color. So when you look at the color wheel, we have three sets of colors. We have the primary colors, secondary colors, and tertiary colors. And when we talk about the primary colors, they are the three main colors, the three basic colors. And those are the colors that you can't obtain it from mixing any other colors. So when we talk about primary colors, we can mention red, yellow, and blue. So these are the basic colors. We have primary colors of pigment and primary colors of light. In primary colors of light, we have red, green, and yellow. So in our graphic design jurisdiction, we will be basing on the primary colors of pigment. So we have the red, yellow, and blue. Then we look at secondary colors. They are also the colors that you can obtain by mixing two primary colors in equal proportion. So if you take red, let's say a half of red and a half of blue, when you mix it, you get the outcome you get is what we term as what? A secondary color. So you can mix two primary colors to get all the secondary colors. So you have when you mix red and blue, you get purple. When you mix, you get violet, or somebody will say purple also. And when you mix red and yellow, you also get orange. When you mix red and yellow and blue, then you get what? You get green. So green, orange, and purple, or somebody will say violet, is what we termed as the secondary colors in this color wheel. So we will look also at the tertiary colors. When we talk about the tertiary colors, when you take one primary color, then you mix it with a secondary color, that's when you get what we call the tertiary color. So if I take red and I take orange, then I mix it, the red will be more than the orange, so there will be a lot of more, so we call it red orange, because the quantity of red is more. If the quantity of yellow, if I add yellow and orange, because the yellow will become more in the orange, we call it yellow orange. So that's how we also get the tertiary colors. Then we come to color harmony. When it comes to color harmony, we say color harmony refers to the visually appealing combination of colors that create a sense of balance, coherence, and emotional resonance. So when we talk about color harmony, they are actually about how color relates. So the person who developed the color wheel shows relationships between what? Colors. So we will look at different color palettes and how they relate on the color wheel. So the first one, we have complementary colors. So when you are a graphic designer and you are designing, we have some basic color theories that we call the color harmony. So we have the first one, we have the complementary. When we talk about the complementary colors, they are the colors on the color wheel that are opposite, directly opposite to each other on the color wheel. So if you take orange, orange is directly opposite to what? Blue. So it means orange and blue are what? Complementary colors. So in your design, you can use complementary colors as your color palette. So you can use orange and blue together in your design. We also have triadic colors. When we talk about triadic colors, when we look on the color wheel, there are three colors which are equidistant. Like the distance between them are equal. So when you take red, orange, yellow, green, and blue, violet, the distance between them is equal. You can see, you can count 1, 2, 3 colors. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. It means they are hot, triadic. So when you take orange, violet, green, and orange, violet, and green also become hot, triadic, because they are also equally spaced on the color hue. So it's, when we talk about triads, it's more about, it's just like the primary colors, secondary colors, and tertiary colors, because if you take the primary colors, they are equally distanced on the color hue. If you take the secondary colors, they are equally distanced on the color hue. When you take the tertiary colors too, they are also equally what? Distanced on the color hue. And we also have analogous colors. When we talk about analogous colors, they are the colors that sit close to each other on the color hue. So when you take blue, green, and green, they are next to each other on the color hue. So we can say blue, green, and green are what? Analogous colors. You can also take red, violet, and blue, violet, for instance. They are also what? Analogous colors. Then we have split complementary colors. We first looked at complementary colors. Now we have what we call split complementary colors. When we talk about split complementary colors, it's like when you take the complementary colors, let's say yellow is complementary to what? violet. So you take the violet, then you look at the right and the left side of that color, then you choose those two colors, and that becomes what? The split complementary. Yellow is complementary to violet, so the red violet and blue violet becomes the split of the complementary colors. So you choose the three colors: yellow, red violet, blue violet, and it also becomes your color palette. Then we also have monochromatic colors. When we say monochrome, it means the use of one particular color. So when we talk about monochromatic colors, it means using a particular color in different shades and tints. When we talk about shade, maybe I take red. If I add a little of black to it, I am shading it. If I add a little of white to it, I am also tinting it. So the addition of white or black to the color makes it monochromatic. So if I take blue, when I add little drops of white, you can see I'll get a transition of colors. And you can use that also as your color palette when designing. So let's look at an example of how somebody used color palette in his design. So in the first design, we have a shawarma design, somebody designing for a food. So you can see that the person has used the color palette. You can see orange, lemon green, and a lighter orange there. So you can see that the person picked the colors from the images he was using. You can see the colors of the shawarma. You can see lemon green, you can see orange, and you can see the lighter orange. So the person picked the color palette from the images he was using. So in graphic design, when you are designing, you can choose your color palette from what? The image you are going to use. So if you have a picture like this, now the person has picked the colors from the image, and now he has used it. You can see that the color has made the design very nice because he picked the colors from what? The image. And this one too is an example of how to use monochrome in design. You can see in the design, the person used a lighter blue and a darker blue. So this becomes the monochromatic. This one has been tinted, and you can see it makes a nice design. So we are also looking at color properties. When we talk about color properties, we have different types of color properties, such as the hue, saturation, value, and color temperature. When we talk about hue, when you take a color without adding any different color to it, that becomes a hue. A color in its pure state. When you take a color and it is in its pure state without any other color mixing it, it becomes a hue. And when we talk about saturation, how bright a color looks like, that's what we call the saturation. And the value of the color is how maybe how dark or cool how do I put it? You see, you can see some color, it is very bright, and other color to it is very dark. So that's what we call the color value. And we have the color temperature. When it talks about color temperature, we have two types of color temperature. We have the warm and cool colors. When we talk about warm colors, when you add a color that contains red and yellow, becomes a warm color. So any color that contains red and yellow is a warm color. So colors like red orange is what? A warm color. colors like, so color that contains blue becomes cool color. When you see blue, it calms your spirit down. In a room where there is a blue painting, you can see that, oh, this room is very cool. So that's any color that contains blue becomes a cool color. So colors like blue, yellow, blue, green, blue, violet, they are also what? Cool colors. Then we look at contrast. When we talk about contrast, it's like how different two colors are from each other. So when you take one color and you put another color at its side, how different or how they relate. So you can see we have some text here. This is why black text on white background is so popular and effective. There is a high degree of contrast. You can see that the black has a higher contrast against the background. But in this case, it looks like they all have the same contrast. So you can't read. When you have such a design outside somewhere and you are from afar, you struggle or you strain your eye towards to read that particular design because of the contrast in that text and the background. And that's one of the mistakes most designers do. When they are designing, they use colors that, in graphic design, we call them conflicting colors. Some colors like yellow with a white text. Yellow is a very vibrant color. So when you put a white text on it, the contrast of or the saturation of the white is very high as compared to the yellow. So this one is having higher intensity, this one too is having higher intensity, and you are putting them together. If you put fire to if you put fire on fire, it's going to be what? A lot of fire. So when you are reading a text which is white on yellow, you can see that your eyes will start you will start crying. Meanwhile, nobody has beat you. You'll be straining your eyes. So that's one effect of color contrast. You see, be careful. Even though colors may contrast, they may not always work well for text and background pairing. Although some colors may contrast when you are using them in design, but when you are using them for text on a background, they may not contrast. Example is a red on blue on a violet background. You can see that although when you put red aside of the background, they contrast, but with the text they do not contrast. So when you are designing, you just look at how the colors contrast with the background. The color of the text also do what? Contrast with the background. But simultaneously, be aware of extreme lack of contrast in your text and background. So when you put the same color as the background on the red, you can see that it's also painful to read. You strain your eye to read the text. So that's an effect of color, color contrast. So we are also looking at color psychology. When we talk about color psychology, it means the emotions we have about color. When we see color, how we feel about that particular color. And one thing we should know that color psychology varies in different cultures. When you come into the Ghanaian culture, how we see colors is different from how somebody in an European country sees colors. Some meaning of colors we have in Africa here is not the same as the meaning of some colors we have in some European countries. So we are going to look at how color affects us. When we see color, how we feel about that particular color, and how brands also use colors to stimulate those emotions. So color often comes with feelings, mood, and associate that and association that you can draw on. So immediately you see a stop sign because of the red. Immediately you see it, you know that there is a sign of what? Danger ahead. So for example, the color red is largely associated with danger, aggression, stimulation, and excitement. Example of the use of red is Coca-Cola. Because of most brands use red for their brand because of how people feel about that particular color. Immediately you see that particular color, it's either it brings excitement or it brings out, it gives you an idea of there is some danger ahead. So most brands like McDonald's, Coca-Cola, and other brands also use red for their design. So color associations. When you take red, red means danger, energy, passion, love, excitement. When you also take the orange color also is associated with warmth, creativity, enthusiasm, and playfulness. Yellow also is associated with happiness, optimism, sunshine, and hope. When you take the green color too, we associate green with wealth, health, nature, and what? Growth. When you take the blue color, the blue is also associated with trust. That's why most social media companies also use blue as their brand colors. Example of Facebook and the previous X that we used to know as Twitter, and other HP also use, because we believe blue is associated with trust, loyalty, security, wisdom, and spirituality. And when we also look at pink, pink is associated with femininity, softness, warmth, nurturing. So most brands, like those who are into body care, those who are into children clothing, those who are into children apparels like shirts, everything about children and everything about girls, makeups and those stuff, they use pink for their branding. They mostly use pink for their branding because of how the color pink is associated with femininity, softness, warmth, and what? Nurturing. So when you take black, for instance, black stands for power, elegance, death, and mourning. So in our African society, we say black is what? Beauty. Because black is associated with what? Elegance. So black is associated with beauty. When you see somebody in a fine, dark body, you see that, oh, this person is very beautiful, because in our African society, we associate black with what? Beauty. In the same way, we also associate black with evil. So mostly when you are watching movies whereby there are witches, wizards, and those stuff, you see that their costume is often depicted in black. And also white is associated with purity, innocence, cleanliness, simplicity. So when you learn about the psychology of color, you know when and where to use colors. You can see somebody's election flyer, then immediately you see it, you'll be like, hey, when did this person die? Because why are you saying that? It is because of the colors the designer used. Immediately you see red and black on a flyer with somebody's picture on it. Immediately you see it from afar, because you don't see the text from afar, you see the colors and the picture. Immediately you see and you get closer a little bit, you'll be like, when did this person die? I remember one of my teachers was going for assemblyman, and I saw his poster and was like, hey, when did this person die? Then I got closer to the flyer and read it, and to my surprise, he was going for assemblyman. But because of the colors the designer used, I felt that the person was what? Dead. So color stimulates our feelings. How we see colors is it tells us something. So that's what we termed as what? The color psychology. So when you are a graphic designer, you have to learn more about what? Color psychology. So it's not every color that every brand what uses. So if somebody comes to you and you are designing a logo for the person, and maybe the person is designing for a beauty salon, you can't go and use any colors like green unless maybe the person has some values of growth or something like about growth in his business or her business before you can even think of using what? Green. You can see most banks use green in their design because green is associated with what? Wealth. When we want to depict money, like not the actual money, like maybe Ghana cedis, then we draw Ghana cedis there. If we want to depict money, you see often we use the color green to depict money because we think green is associated with what? Wealth. So in fintech, financial institutions, they often use green. In hospitals, they also use what? Green for hospitality, for growth, for health. And white too is also used for purity. So when a person lives a well or a good life and the person dies, you often see that their poster is often in white colors. So when you see it, oh, this person there, it means the person lived a well life. So that's how color affects our emotions. So when you learn about the color psychology, when you are designing for somebody, you not just go and use any color for the design. You can't use any color for somebody's design because of the psychology we have about what? Colors. Immediately you see it, it will stimulate some emotions in you. So let's look at some popular brands and the colors they use. So when you look at Snapchat and McDonald's, they use yellow. McDonald's has two logos. One is in red and another one is also in what? In yellow. So yellow, we have McDonald's and what? Snapchat. And when we come to, we have the balance, where we have the neutral. The balance is like a blend of gray. So we have Audi. We know that popular car, Audi. So we have their logo there. It's a blend of, it's like a silver color. So that's how they use it. Apple also use that color. And the emotions they have is the yellow stimulates optimism, warmth, clarity. The balance also stimulates neutral, calm, balance. Then when we take the orange color, popular brands like Fanta and Golf also use orange in their colors because of the emotions they stimulate. When we take red, as I said earlier, Coca-Cola, Marvel, the popular Netflix, they all use red because of this feelings they stimulate. When we take blue, we have HP, Facebook, and the old Twitter, and we have other tech companies that use blue because of blue is associated with security, trust, stability, strength. And we have green. When you look at Spotify and Land Rover, they use green in their brand. When you look at pink or purple, there is a brand of color. When you look at Cadbury, I don't know the other brand. It's not so popular. I don't know. Does anybody know this brand? Okay, so we also have diversified, a blend of different colors. So we have mixed feelings. So something like eBay and the other one, I've forgotten the brand name. They also use diversified colors. So now we head on to the tips when you are a graphic designer and you are going into design. Is not more about the software. The software is only helping you to execute the work. But design is more about getting to know how to use the colors, how to use the typography, how to use images, how to arrange them on that particular space you have. That is what graphic design is more about. How to stimulate feelings, how your message is going out, and how people will respond to that message. Is what is more about graphic design. So the first step is to test colors in different contexts and lighting conditions. So when you are designing, you can test your colors, the colors you choose, you test it in different contexts. Okay, you use it here, then you check, no, this color is not good here, then you change it, then depending on how you use it. So maybe you use blue, a dark blue, then you see that no, this one doesn't match with the image I'm using, so let me reduce the intensity small so that it will be tinted small. Then okay, now it's good, then you use it. So you test your colors in different contexts and lighting conditions. And the second one, limit your color palette to 2 or 4. You see one particular design and there is more than 5 colors in a particular design. So when you are designing, you limit your colors to what? 2 or 4 color palettes. So if you are using triadic colors, then triadic colors is actually 3. So you take 3 colors, then you use it, you know how to manipulate it in your design. You can also use monochromatic colors to make your design. Then you use harmony principles. The harmony principles is what we learned at the complementary colors, triadic, split complementary, analogous. Those are the color harmonies. So when you learn the color harmonies principles, you can use it in your design. And the fourth one, be consistent in your color usage. So you can't be using colors anyhow. So if you are using blue, be consistent with the blue. If you are using blue and green, be consistent with the blue and green. You can't go and use red for the test, yellow for the another test, green for another test. Then you'll be using different colors. Also use online color selection tools and resources for inspiration. So there are many online color selection tools that will help you to select a color palette for your design. So when you use those tools, or maybe you look at somebody's design, okay, this is how the person used color, so this is how I am also going to use color. That one will also help you as a graphic designer. And the other one is consider color meanings in different cultures. So the color blue that we associate it with, let's say happiness, strength, and those stuff. When you go to Iraq and Iran, the color blue is used for mourning. So you can't go and use blue in Iran to design maybe something for something which is not related to that. So you look at where you are designing, how they understand colors, then you use it there. Then also ensure efficient contrast for readability. So when you take your text and your background, you make sure that okay, this color I'm putting on this background, it contrasts with it perfectly, so that when somebody sees it, the person will be able to do what? To read it. And also match color with images, just like the design I showed previously. You choose your colors from the images you are working with, so that the images will form like a uniform with the color palette you are using. You can't be using colors anyhow in your design. So we are looking at color formats. In designing, we have different color formats, but what graphic designers use most is the two colors. We have CMYK, what we call the cyan, magenta, yellow, and key, or black. So that's when you are designing for printouts, the printer uses the CMYK. So when you are a graphic designer and the design you are designing is going to be printed, you have to design it in that color format. When you are designing, when we get to the software part, you will learn how to change those color modes and use it how depending on where we are going to use what the design for. If you are going to print it, you have to choose the CMYK color mode or color format. And if you are designing it for a screen, let's say you are designing it for a TV station, definitely they are going to display it. They are not going to print it. So you design it in RGB. If you are designing for maybe just like my presentation, if you are designing, you have to do it in RGB. Now, because of advance in technology, sometimes most printers adapt to the color changes. In the olden days, if you design in RGB and you send it to a print house to print it, you see that the design you design and the outcome you get is far different. Because of how the printer is designed. The printer is designed to print in CMYK and your design is in RGB. That means your design is for only screen. If you are designing for websites, if you are designing for any screen display, that's when you use RGB. But if you are going to print it, it is advisable to use what? CMYK. So we will look at some resources available when you want to use colors in your design. So you can search on Google for Chroma, Picula, Muesli, Color, Site Palette, Color Hunt, Coolers, Color Space, Color Inspire. So all these are places you can get color inspiration from, or you can get color palettes to use in your design. I'll be sharing the slides, so don't worry. Then we have the reading list, so you can also, to further your knowledge about color and color psychology, you can read about 4 best colors for marketing and why colors are important. You can also look at basic color theory and also color psychology.